Today, I'm going to show you how I stack my firewood and the reasons why I stack it the way I do. So when stacking my firewood, I have a couple goals in mind. I want the wood to dry as quick as possible. I want the piles to be stable, that way I'm not picking them up every time the wind blows or we get a heavy snowstorm. I also want the piles to be pretty eye-pleasing. They recommend a year or more for your firewood to dry, and well, I don't want to be staring at a mess for the next year or two. So one of the very first things I do is scout for a good location. I'm looking for something that's got a lot of wind and sun exposure. I'm also hoping it's not too far away from the final destination of where the wood will be burned at, although I don't sweat it too much if it's out there a ways. It's just a little bit more work kind of handling the wood and hauling it. I don't recommend stacking your firewood up against your house, just oftentimes because those wood piles become home for mice nests and chipmunks, and it's not too far of a journey to find their way into your house once the cold weather moves in. A lot of times what we do is we keep our firewood out a little ways, and then we haul in what we need for the winter into our barn, and that way it kind of helps deter someone from just backing up their pickup truck and helping themselves. Especially once the snow falls, we don't keep any trails open out there, so it's just a little bit more of a deterrent, I guess, from theft. Once you get your location picked out, you're going to want to get that firewood up and off the ground. Just raising it up a few inches will really help in how quickly it dries. I'm not sure if you've ever cut a tree that's been lying down for a while, but oftentimes it could be more wet than a live cut tree. It just seems to really pull that moisture out of the ground and soak up into the wood. One of my preferred methods for raising it is using pallets. Pallets are generally 4 feet long, and if you look at a cord of wood, it's 4 feet wide, 4 feet tall, and 8 feet long. So if you stack two pallets next to each other the long ways, that gives you 8 feet, and it's pretty easy to kind of look out at your piles and get a rough idea on how much firewood you actually have out there. One good resource for finding pallets for free is on Craigslist, or just stopping and asking your local small businesses. They oftentimes don't have the warehouse space to store them, so they're more than happy to have you drag them away. If you're having a hard time finding pallets, you can use logs. If you just cut some long, kind of smaller logs or branches and just run them kind of parallel, you can stack them up on top of that as well. Just getting it separated makes a pretty big difference. So I've played around with several different methods of stacking my firewood. Kind of my go-to or most preferred way is more of a traditional style of stacking with cross stacking on the ends. I find it pretty quick and easy to stack. And the cross stacking adds a nice square edge and really helps stabilize the pile quite a bit. I can oftentimes stack that wood well over my head and still have a very stable pile. It also makes very flexible to add on to your existing rows. I've seen some guys where they drive posts in or they build wood racks, and every time they need to add on, they got to either move those posts or get some more to put in. Where if I have some additional wood I bring in, I can just throw down a couple more pallets and continue on my existing row without spending any extra cash. I've also found that the more traditional style seems to dry the wood a little quicker than the Hausen. Some guys kind of say it's the other way around, but using my moisture meter, I just haven't found that to be the case. The Hausen does have some nice benefits. I kind of like the shingled roof type setup. It seems to do a real good job shedding the rain and snow in the winter, and it does a real good job hiding the real ugly splits or some real odd sized ones. Basically you build a wall or circle walls and fill kind of those oddball shape sizes in there and still have a very stable pile. So when stacking in this more traditional style, I start by laying down two pallets. I usually kind of do 2 pallets at a time because it kind of gives me a rough ballpark of a cord. And then my wood splits are usually cut to 18 inches, so 2 of those together is 36 inches. So that's around 3 feet. So I'd have to stack the wood about 5.5 feet tall to actually equal a true cord. So I start with the cross stacking on the ends, and I kind of build those up a little ways, and then I start filling in the rows. I generally have 2 rows, and I push those to the outside edges of the pallets because it gives it a nice clean appearance, as well as it adds a little airspace in between the rows, so it helps the wood dry a little quicker. If you want those piles to be a little more stable, you can also cut some branches kind of the width of your pallet and then lay it across the 2 rows. A handful of those kind of staggered throughout your pile makes a pretty big difference on how stable that is. So I generally don't tarp my firewood until late fall, and usually I only tarp the stuff that I'm planning on burning that winter. I try to kind of beat the rainy part of fall that we usually get here in Minnesota. And there's a couple reasons why I don't tarp. I haven't really found it to dry the wood any quicker, and the tarps get beat up pretty bad out here in the summer because of all the wind, and I just don't like spending the money on the tarps. And when I have tarped in the past, 9 times out of 10 when I go out there and start moving firewood in the fall, I'm usually finding a couple of wasp nests of some sort, and it makes for probably an interesting view for the neighbors. So that's just part of the reason I personally don't tarp. If we were probably in a much more rainy, moist area, I'd maybe think about it, but personally I just haven't found a need to do it. So I think I'm going to be building another one of these whole Hausen here pretty soon. If you guys got any interest in me filming that and how I build it, let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I'd really greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching.
Life was carefree then, the day before I began.